Welcome to Fear and Fiction, where the stories are strange and the fear is real. Until I was around 12 years old, I thought my mother was the oldest of all her siblings. There are 7 of them. So for most of my childhood, that is just what I believed, that my mama came first and everybody else came after. Then one day we were sitting at the table, just talking, and she started telling me about her older sister, a sister who had passed away. I had never heard about her, not once. And here my mother was talking about her like somebody she had loved her whole life. She told me that when she was born, her sister was already 7 years old, and that sister would play with her, comb her hair, feed her. My mother said it was like having a second mama in the house, somebody who looked after her, kept her close, took care of her when she was too little to take care of herself. Then, when my mother was 5, her sister got real sick and she passed away. A couple of months after that, my mother would be outside, walking around the way children do, and a little girl started coming to the edge of the woods, right at the tree line, where the yard ended and the shade began. And this little girl would try to beckon my mother over, waving at her, smiling, motioning for her to come and play. My mother never went. Every single time she gave the same answer. She said, "I have to go ask my mama first." And she would turn to go inside and ask, and by the time she looked back, the little girl was gone. This happened several times. The girl at the trees, the waving, "Come play," and my mother saying, "I have to ask my mama," over and over, until finally my mother told my grandmother and her aunties what she had been seeing out there by the woods, and they did not laugh at her. They did not tell her she was imagining it. They got very serious, and they told her that if she ever saw that little girl again, she was not to go to her. She was not to talk to her. No matter what, she was to turn around and come inside. My mother asked them why. They told her it was her sister, coming back for her. They said her sister had loved her so much that she had come back to get her, and that if my mother had ever followed that little girl into those woods, my mother would have passed too, that she would not have come back. My mother never saw the little girl again after that. I heard that story growing up, and for a long time I held it the way you hold old family stories. I believed that my mother believed it. I just did not know what I believed myself. And then, 5 days ago, I had a dream. I dreamed about my ex-husband. He has been gone for 2 years now. In the dream, it was a bright, sunny day, and I was walking out of a store into the parking lot, and he was across the parking lot, standing there. Blue polo shirt, blue jeans, exactly the way I remembered him when he was alive. Real tall, 6'4", with that reddish hair, and a big smile. He was just smiling and waving and calling my name, and I did not acknowledge him. I did not answer him. I did not wave back, because the second I saw him standing across that lot, smiling and waving me over, I thought about my mother. I thought about that little girl at the edge of the woods, waving her over to come play, so I pretended I did not see him. I put my eyes down, and I went the other way. I have not been able to get it out of my mind since, because part of me thinks it was only a dream, grief, and old memories, and a story I heard as a child, all coming back up at once. But another part of me keeps wondering, why was he all the way across the parking lot? Why did he stay over there waving, calling the same way that little girl stayed at the tree line? Why did he not just walk up to me? And I keep wondering what would have happened if I had answered him, if I had waved back, if I had walked across that parking lot to him. Would I have just woken up, or would I still be over there with him right now, somewhere I could not come back from, and never able to tell anybody this story? I do not know. I will never know. But I know what my mother knew, because her aunties taught it to her, and she taught it to me. If he ever calls my name again, in a dream or anywhere else, I'm going to do exactly what my mother did at 5 years old. I am not going to answer him, and I am not going to follow. I want to say up front that I'm not a person who believes in any of this. I want that on the record because of how the rest of this sounds. I am 34. I do heating and air. I have never had a spiritual experience in my life. And when people talk about signs and visits and all that, I usually just nod and let them have it. Nobody in my family passed anything down to me. No rules, no superstitions. My people are not like that. If somebody told my mother she should not sweep over your feet, she would tell you to move your feet. So I did not have a rule. That is the piece that matters, really. Everybody else in these stories had somebody who told them. I did not have anybody who told me. My uncle raised me from about 11 on. My father was not around and my mother worked nights, so I was at his house more than mine. He taught me the trade I still do. He was not warm about it. He was actually kind of hard on me, in a way I did not appreciate until I was grown and had guys working under me and understood what he was actually doing. He used to make me do a job twice. Not because I did it wrong, because he wanted me to do it right the second time without him standing there. He would just walk off and let me sit with it. I hated it. I was 15, 16, sweating in somebody's attic redoing work I already did, and he is out in the truck with the radio on. But I have never once been unsure of my own work since, not one day of my life, and that is because of him. He showed up, every time, every game, every court date my mother had, every time my car broke down at 2 in the morning in my 20s. I understood what that meant even when I was too young to say it, and I never said it to him, which is its own thing I have to live with. He passed in March. Heart, he was 61. 8 months later, I'm at his house because my aunt is selling it and I'm helping clear it out. It is November. It is already dark by 6, and I am loading tools into my truck in the driveway, alone. Aunt was inside, and he says my name, behind me, off toward the garage, not far away, not echoing, not any of the stuff people describe. Just a man saying my name from about 15 feet back the way he had said it 1,000 times when he wanted me to come look at something. And I said, yeah, that was it. That is what I did. I did not turn around. I did not go over there. I did not walk into the garage. I said, yeah. The way you do when somebody says your name and you are in the middle of something. It was automatic. It was so automatic I had already said it before I processed that the man who said my name has been in the ground since March. Then I turned around. Nothing there. Empty driveway, empty garage, my truck, the street light. I stood there maybe a full minute waiting to feel scared, and I did not feel anything except stupid. I told myself it was the neighbor. I told myself it was a radio. I told myself I was tired, because I had been working doubles and then coming to that house every evening. I did not tell my aunt. I finished loading the truck and I went home. Here's where it stops being a story about one night. It started coming more often after that, not scarier, more often. That is the part I cannot get anybody to understand when I try to explain it. There was never a moment where something jumped out at me. It is just that he says my name now, and he has been saying it for going on 2 years. In my truck, at work, in somebody's crawl space. Once with a customer standing 4 feet from me who did not react at all, did not even look up, and I had to keep talking to her about a condenser like nothing happened. In my kitchen, in the shower, one time, which I did not care for, never in a scary voice, never angry. I want to be clear about that because I think people expect the movie version. It always sounds like him on a normal day, like he is in the next room and needs me to come look at something. Just my name. Sometimes twice. The second one a little more like a question, the way you do when somebody has not answered you yet. The worst place it happened was my aunt's new apartment at Thanksgiving. Whole family in there, my cousins, the kids, TV going, and I heard him say my name from the hallway. And I sat there with a plate in my lap, and I did not move and I did not say anything. And about 10 minutes later, I went and sat in my truck for a while. My cousin came out and asked if I was all right. I told her I was tired, and every time, some part of me still wants to answer. That is the part that is wearing me down, not fear. It is that I have to actively decide not to answer my uncle 4 or 5 times a week, and every time I decide not to, It feels like I'm doing something disrespectful to a man who raised me. I did tell somebody eventually, a guy I work with, older, and I only told him because I was running out of room to hold it, and he did not laugh. He got quiet, and he asked me, "Did you ever answer him?" And I said, "Yeah, the first time, in the driveway." And he said, "Well, there it is." He said his grandmother used to say you never answer, because answering is you telling them you can hear them. That once they know you can hear, they keep coming, because now there is a way through. He was not trying to scare me. He was actually apologetic about it, like he felt bad being the one to tell me. He said his grandmother had rules for all of it, and he wished he remembered more of them. I have looked for that. I have. I went to my aunt. I went to my mother. I asked if anybody in our family ever said anything about this, any old thing, any rule, and nobody had anything for me. My aunt looked at me like I was having a breakdown. Maybe I am. I have considered that seriously, and I want to be honest that I have considered it. But my nephew is 9, and he stayed at my place 2 weekends ago, and he came out the bathroom and asked me who was calling him. So I do not think it is me. I do not have an ending for this. I know that is not what people want when they send something in. I am not writing this because something got resolved. I still hear him. I heard him yesterday, in the truck, on the highway, in the middle of the afternoon with music playing, clear as anything. I will not answer him again. I have not since that driveway. But I answered once, and from what that man at work told me, once might have been the whole thing. And if that is true, then there is nothing I can do now except not answer for the rest of my life. If anybody reading this knows anything about how you undo it, or if there is somebody I'm supposed to talk to, I would take that. I am not really asking for a scary story to be told. I am asking. I'm going to write these out of order because that is the order I remembered them in. And if I try to organize it properly, I think I will start shaping it into something, and I do not want to do that. I want to put them down the way they came to me. There are 4. I did not know there were 4 until about a month ago. The one I remembered first is my cousin Renee, because it is the most recent. This was 2 summers ago. Her mother, my aunt, had passed the winter before. Renee was in the kitchen at like 2 in the afternoon, broad daylight, and she heard her mother say her name from the back bedroom. She told me she said, "Ma'am," just automatically. And then she said she stood there in the kitchen, holding a dish towel for a long time, and did not go back there. She never went back there. She said she cleaned that whole house in the following weeks, and she never went in that bedroom again. She paid somebody to clear it out, and she has never explained to anybody why. She only told me about it because we were drinking at her house late after everybody else had gone. And she said it fast and then changed the subject, the way people do when they have decided to say a thing before they can talk themselves out of it. She has never brought it up again since, and I have never asked her to. What I keep thinking about is the dish towel. She told me she was holding a dish towel, and she just stood there holding it. I do not know why. That is the detail that stays with me. But I can see her standing in that kitchen holding a dish towel with the sun still up. Second one is my grandmother, and this is the oldest one. And I only have it secondhand from my mother, so take it how you want. Grandma was in her 70s. My grandfather had passed a couple years before. She told my mother that he called her from the front porch one evening, and she said, and I am quoting what my mother told me, she said, "I told him no." That is the whole thing. She told him no. My mother said, she asked her what she meant, and Grandma just said again, "I told him no," and would not say another word about it, and that was the end of the conversation. My grandmother lived another 11 years. I do not know what she meant by no. I have thought about it more than is probably healthy. I do not know if she meant no, I am not coming, or no, you are not him, or no, I am not doing this with you, or something else entirely. My grandmother was not a soft woman. I want to put that in here because I think it matters to how you hear it. She buried 2 children and a husband, and she ran a house on almost nothing, and she did not have a lot of patience for carrying on. So when I imagine her on that porch saying no to my grandfather's voice, I do not imagine her scared. I imagine her annoyed. I imagine her saying it the way she would say it to one of us. Third one is my brother Terrence. This one bothers me more than the rest, and I almost left it out. He was 17. Our father had been gone about a year. Terrence woke up the whole house at 3 in the morning, and he was standing in the hallway crying, and he kept saying Daddy was in his room, not a dream. He was insistent that our father had been standing at the foot of his bed, saying his name over and over and would not stop. And my mother did what I think most people would do. She told him it was a dream. She got him some water. She sat with him. She told him it was a dream and go back to sleep. And he did. I do not blame her. I want to say that. She was a widow with 4 kids, and she was doing what she could. But I remember standing in that hallway. I was 15, watching my brother try to tell somebody something and get told it was a dream. And I remember he stopped talking about it after that night, completely. He never mentioned it again, not one time in 30 years. He passed in 2019, and I never asked him about it. 30 years. We talked almost every week. We talked about everything, about his divorce, about our mother getting sick, about money, about nothing. And I never once said, "Hey, you remember that night when you were 17? Because by the time I was old enough to think about asking, it had turned into one of those things the family did not bring up, and I did not want to be the one to bring it up. I do not know how to make peace with that, and I have stopped trying to. It just sits there." The fourth one is me, and it is the smallest, and honestly, it is barely anything. I am including it because of the pattern, not because it is a good story. About 4 months after Terrence passed, I was in my car in a parking garage and somebody said my name, his voice, one time, and I did not answer, and nothing else happened, and I sat there for a minute and then I drove home. That is it. That is all it was. If it were the only thing that ever happened in my family, I would have forgotten it inside a week. Here's why I sent this. A month ago, I was helping my niece with the family tree thing for school, one of those projects, and I was writing out who passed when. And I had all these dates in front of me on one page for the first time in my life. And I looked at it and I thought, hold on. Every single one of these happened somewhere between 6 months and about a year and a half after we buried somebody. Every one. Grandma with my grandfather, Terrence with our father, Renee with her mother, me with Terrence. 4 people, 4 different decades. None of us ever compared notes. And it is the same window every time. And it is always the person who was closest to them. That is the other thing. Not the whole family. Not everybody who loved them. One person. And it is always the one who is having the hardest time. Renee nursed my aunt through the end of it. Terrence was our father's shadow. That boy followed him everywhere. I was the one who could not get right after Terrence. It picks the one who is already reaching. I sat there at that kitchen table with my niece's school project in front of me, and I felt something go cold all the way down. Because if that is true, if it comes for whoever is reaching hardest, then it is not random, and it is not a coincidence, and it is going to happen again in this family. It is just a question of who we lose next and who takes it worse. Nobody in my family has a rule about this. That is what gets me. We are church-going people. We have plenty of sayings about plenty of things, and not one person ever sat any of us down and said, if you hear them, do not answer. If somebody had, my brother would not have spent 30 years thinking he was crazy at 17. I do not know what any of it is. I will not sit here and pretend I do. What I have done is tell my nieces and nephews, all of them, individually, and I felt ridiculous doing it. I said, if you ever hear somebody who is gone calling you, do not answer it, and come tell me. And I am not going to say it was a dream. That is all I have got. It is not a rule that came down to me. It is a rule I am starting at 48 years old because I looked at a piece of paper and saw a pattern that has been running through my family since before I was born, and nobody ever wrote it down. If somebody had written it down, maybe my brother would have had something. That is really the only reason I'm sending this. I need to say first that nothing ever happened to me. I have never heard a voice, never seen anything, nothing. So if you are looking for somebody who had an experience, that is not me. I was the one standing next to her. Danielle and I have been friends since we were 9. Same block, same school. Her mother did my hair for prom. We are the kind of friends where I do not knock, I just come in. Her son calls me auntie. That is the level. Her mother passed in April 2 years ago. Cancer, and it was quick, about 11 weeks from the diagnosis. Danielle was the one who took care of her through all of it. She moved back into that house and she did everything. I was there a lot, but I was not there like she was there. The first time I noticed something was maybe that August. We were in her kitchen and she was talking to me, and she stopped mid-sentence and turned her head toward the hallway, just turned and looked. And I said, "What?" And she said nothing and finished her sentence. That was it. That was the whole thing. I did not think about it again for weeks. Then it started happening more, and I started counting without meaning to. She would be in the middle of something, and she would stop and look toward the back of that house. Every single time it was the same direction, toward her mother's old room. And I let it go for a long time because, what do you even say? Your friend keeps looking down the hallway. That is not something you bring up. But the night I actually got scared was in October. We were watching TV in her living room, both of us on the couch. And she got up, did not say anything, just stood up and started walking toward the hallway. And I said her name, and she did not answer me. And I said it again louder, and she stopped in the doorway. And she said, "Did you not hear that?" I said, "Hear what?" And she looked at me for a second, and I watched something come over her face. This awful little moment where she understood that I had not heard anything. And she said, "Never mind." And she came and sat back down, and we did not talk about it. I have replayed that so many times. She was already halfway to that hallway before I said anything. If I had gone to the bathroom, if I had been on my phone, if I had not been sitting right there. I finally brought it up in November. I asked her straight out, and she was embarrassed, which got me because she had nothing to be embarrassed about. She told me she had been hearing her mother call her name since about a month after the funeral. She said it was always from the back of the house. She said it never sounded wrong or scary. It just sounded like her mother warning her for something, the same as any day of her life. And she said the reason she had not told anybody is that she did not want people to think she was not handling it. Then she said something that has stayed with me ever since. She said sometimes I want to answer her so bad I have to sit on my hands. She was not scared. That is what I could not get across to anybody. Everybody I tried to talk to about this wanted to tell me she was grieving and hearing things, and she needed a therapist, and maybe, fine, maybe. But she was not scared of it, and I could not make anybody understand why that was the part that frightened me. I started staying over. I did not make a thing out of it. I just started finding reasons. Work is closer from her house. I did not feel like driving. My cable was out. She let me, and I think she knew exactly what I was doing and let me anyway. And neither of us ever said it out loud. Nothing happened for a while. Months. I was starting to think it had run its course. Then in February, I woke up in her guest room at like 4 in the morning because the hallway light was on, and Danielle was standing at her mother's bedroom door with her hand on the knob, not opening it, just standing there with her hand on it. And I said her name from the doorway behind her, and she did not turn around, and she said, "She is asking me to come in. I want to tell you I did something brave." What I actually did was grab the back of her shirt. That is it. I stood behind my best friend and held on to a fistful of her shirt, like she was a kid about to step into a street, and I said her name over and over until she let go of that doorknob. She turned around and she was crying, and she said she was sorry. She apologized to me. In her own house, at 4 in the morning, she apologized to me. We sat on the kitchen floor until it got light out. She sold that house that spring, moved across town into an apartment with her son, and she has not heard it since. Not one time in over a year, and I know because I asked her, and she is honest with me. So it is fine now. It is fine. What I cannot put down is that I have no idea what was on the other side of that door if she had opened it. Maybe nothing. Maybe she would have walked into an empty bedroom and stood there and come back to bed. And it would be a funny thing we talk about now. But I was there for 8 months of it, and I never heard one sound. Not one. Whatever was calling my best friend through that house was not calling loud enough for anybody else to hear. And I do not know what that means. And nobody has ever been able to tell me. I still stay over sometimes. She does not need it anymore. I think I do. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Please get in those comments and let me know which story was your favorite. Also, don't be afraid to submit stories. Till next time.